The galaxy was quiet that night, a silence that felt almost alive. In the cold edge of the Zereth Dominion's patrol zone, a fleet of 5 ships drifted slowly through the darkness, scanning for pirates or debris. Their commander, Admiral Rellin Vorth, sat in his chair staring at the deep black screen before him. It had been a normal patrol, calm, uneventful, until the stars started to blink, one by one. "Disappearing behind something huge, report," he said softly, his voice calm but sharp. "Sir?" "Unknown mass detected," replied the sensor officer, her eyes wide. "It's blocking entire constellations." Admiral Vorth stood up, his scales glowing faintly under the command lights. A rogue planet? He guessed. But deep inside, he knew it was not. This shadow had a shape, a design, a purpose. As the fleet drifted closer, the static grew heavier on every channel. Their communication with the Dominion outpost broke down completely, replaced by a strange hum that seemed to echo through metal and bone alike. Then the sensors caught it, metal, structure, fusion residue. The computer stuttered for a moment before spitting out the words on screen: material composition, Terran alloy, origin Earth. The entire bridge froze. Earth? "That's impossible," the Admiral whispered. The young ensign turned pale. "Humans went extinct 20,000 cycles ago." No one spoke after that, because before them something massive began to move. It was not a planet, not a station, it was a warship, ancient yet alive. Its surface glowed faintly with blue lines, like veins awakening after long sleep. The ship's hull stretched for miles, covered with burn scars from forgotten wars. The Zerath ship's lights reflected off its armor, revealing faded markings and Earth insignia, a blue sphere surrounded by 12 stars. The bridge crew could feel it, something deep in their instincts telling them to run, but they couldn't. It was as if the entire fleet was trapped in awe. The void around them seemed to hold its breath. "Try hailing it," Admiral Vorth ordered finally. "Transmitting wideband signal now," the officer said, but her claws trembled on the controls. The signal went out and was swallowed, no reply. Then the ancient warship's lights brightened, one by one, like the awakening of a sleeping giant. Engines that had been silent for ages roared faintly, their low vibration shaking every hull around. A deep voice suddenly echoed across every frequency, clear and cold. "System reboot complete. Terran vessel, Vigilant Dawn, status, operational." The crew of the Zerath fleet stared at each other in shock. No one spoke, no one even breathed. The ship's voice continued. "Time since last activation, 20,000. 403 galactic years." The Admiral stepped forward slowly. "This can't be real," he said. But it was. The stars themselves seemed to bow in silence to the returning ghost. A low pulse of light rippled through the Vigilant Dawn's hull. Their sensors overloaded instantly. All screens flashed white. For a few seconds, every ship went blind. And in those seconds, something changed. The void around them grew warmer, alive and heavy when the visuals returned. The Terran warship had moved just slightly, but enough to make every heart freeze. "Sir, it's locking sensors on us!" shouted the tactical officer. "Defensive shields up," Vorth ordered, his voice cracking for the first time. But the shields didn't respond. The systems flickered and died. Every control panel in the fleet went dark, every weapon offline, and then came the sound, like a deep, distant heartbeat echoing through metal. The human ship didn't fire. It simply watched. A single beam of light scanned across the Zerath flagship, reading every life sign, every weapon system, every fear. Then it stopped. The AI voice returned, softer this time, almost human. Detected species, non-human. Threat level, negligible. No hostile action required, and with that, the warship's massive engines dimmed again. Returning to silence, the Zerath bridge filled with stunned quiet. One of the officers whispered, "It spared us." The Admiral didn't respond. He just stared at the glowing insignia on the ship's hull. It looked almost like an eye staring back, ancient and knowing. Something in him understood that this was only the beginning. The fleet drifted helplessly as the Terran ship turned its bow toward the stars. The scanners showed energy signatures spreading across nearby systems, other Terran vessels awakening. One after another, Admiral Vorth's voice trembled as he spoke into the log recorder. "This is Admiral Rellin Vorth of the Zerath Dominion. We have encountered a Terran warship. It is active, and it remembers." The transmission cut off midway as the Vigilant Dawn emitted a faint blue pulse. Every ship's clock froze at the same second, every system rebooted as if rewritten. And in that frozen moment, the galaxy itself seemed to pause. Every commander, every empire, every intelligence network that received the signal would replay it again and again. For what they saw in that brief image, the sight of a human warship, alive and moving, would change everything. And so the galaxy fell silent once more, not out of peace but out of fear, because silence, everyone knew, was the sound before a storm. The galaxy was never meant to see a human warship again, yet there it was, floating in the cold void like a sleeping god, the Terran vessel. Vigilant Dawn stood silent for a moment, its surface glowing faintly with blue energy veins. Then the hum of life spread through its colossal body, as if the ship was breathing after a long dream. Inside the Zerath Dominion flagship, Admiral Relin Vorth still stared at the impossible sight before him. No word could describe the feeling, the mixture of awe, terror, and disbelief. He turned to his crew, their faces pale under the blue light reflected from the Terran hull. "Record everything," he said quietly. "History is waking up." The scanners tried again, but the human ship's systems were too advanced. Every scan was bounced back as if the Vigilant Dawn was studying them instead. A deep pulse of sound rolled through the void, soft but powerful enough to shake every nearby ship. And then, across every open frequency came a human voice, calm, emotionless yet strangely alive. "System reboot complete. Artificial Intelligence Unit Aurora online. Mission log classified. Last entry, Earth Defense Fleet, final stand." The words sent chills through every alien who heard them. For centuries, the galaxy had whispered myths about the last human fleet that vanished after the solar wars. Now, one of those ships was speaking again. Suddenly, the Terran vessel's lights flared to life. Row after row of blue illumination cut through the darkness like the eyes of a titan. Its main engines rumbled softly, shaking even distant asteroids. The Vigilant Dawn began to move, slowly, steadily, turning its ancient hull toward the Zerath fleet. "Sir, it's aligning its main cannons," shouted the tactical officer. "Back away!" Admiral Vorth barked, but it was too late. The entire fleet drifted helplessly, engines unresponsive, shields still offline. The Terran ship's targeting systems locked onto them, but no weapons fired. Instead, a beam of pale light extended from the warship and touched their flagship. Inside the bridge, the screens flickered. Lines of unknown code began scrolling through every system. The AI of the Terran warship was communicating, no. Rewriting them, Aurora's voice echoed again, this time more human, almost curious. Species unknown, technology primitive. "Intent, observation." The Admiral swallowed hard. "Primitive," he whispered. "We are being judged." Moments later, a new signal flashed across the galaxy. Every communication hub, every military array, and every listening post picked it up. A short, terrifying message, in a language most beings could not understand. But its translation spread like wildfire. "Human fleet status. Reactivation protocol complete. We are back." Within minutes, chaos spread through the empires. The Krill Imperium declared an emergency alert. The Varn Coalition tried to jam the signal, but it only grew stronger, bouncing across galaxies. Even the mighty Galactic Council stopped all transmissions, trying to verify if the rumor was true. Meanwhile, the Vigilant Dawn drifted silently through the void. No weapons fired, no threats made, only that calm, steady hum of power that made space itself tremble. Its scanners turned toward nearby worlds, mapping life signs, civilizations, and radio waves. Every few seconds, the ship released a soft blue pulse like sonar, scanning everything. And with each pulse, more ancient systems began to awaken in far sectors. Old Terran frequencies flickered back to life. Ships that had slept for 20,000 years were answering the call. Back on the Zerath flagship, the crew watched in horror and awe as another silhouette appeared behind the Vigilant Dawn. Another Terran warship, smaller but equally intimidating, decloaked silently. Its name glowed across the hull, TSS Iron Rain. Then another, and another, until the stars were filled with ghostly human ships, each one rising from the darkness like forgotten gods returning to the world. Admiral Vorth could barely speak. This is not just one ship," he said quietly. "It's an entire fleet." No one responded, because every alien on that bridge understood one thing. If this was just the beginning, then the galaxy's age of dominance was already over. The vigilant Dawn slowly turned its bow toward a nearby star system. Aurora's voice came once more, soft but final. Reactivation of Terran fleet complete. Contact with Earth required. Begin the return. And then, with a thunderous burst of light, the Terran warship jumped into slipspace. The blue flash was so bright it burned across hundreds of scanners. When the light faded, there was nothing left but silence. The Zereth fleet floated alone, their systems still locked. Their hearts still racing, in the command chamber. Admiral Vorth whispered to himself, "If they're returning to Earth, then the galaxy is not ready. Far away, in a forgotten corner of the Milky Way, a planet with blue oceans and white clouds began to receive a faint, old signal. It repeated 3 words again and again through the static. Vigilant Dawn, homebound sequence initiated. The Earth had just heard the voice of its lost child, and the galaxy had just realized the storm had truly begun. The news of the Terran warship spread faster than light. Every corner of the galaxy heard the same words. The humans have returned. At first, no one believed it. They called it a glitch, a fake transmission, a myth reborn. But when the images came, the glowing Terran hull, the blue Earth insignia, no one could deny it anymore. In the halls of the Galactic Council, leaders shouted over one another, "Send fleets, send drones." "We must control that technology," one shouted. Another hissed, "No!" "Destroy it before the humans awaken more." But no one could agree, because deep inside, every species remembered the stories. Stories of human ships that burned entire armadas in silence. Stories of mercy and destruction in the same breath, far away. The Zerath Dominion fleet still floated near the sector where the Vigilant Dawn had vanished. Their systems slowly rebooted, lights flickering back to life. "Sir," the communications officer said softly, "every major empire is moving fleets toward this region." Admiral Relin Vorth nodded slowly. "They'll try to claim it, and they'll die trying." Moments later, 1,000 ships from different races entered the system. The space filled with glowing engines, red shields, and armed weapons. They all aimed toward one thing, a silent shadow slowly reappearing from the void. The Vigilant Dawn, back from its jump, now surrounded by the galaxy's finest war machines. The Galactic Alliance commander sent the first hail. "This is Commander Elor of the Alliance Vanguard. Unidentified vessel. Power down your weapons and surrender for inspection." The Terran warship didn't respond. Instead, its lights brightened, and the space around it began to distort slightly. Sensors screamed as they detected gravitational pressure far beyond safe limits. Admiral Vorth whispered, "They are charging something." "Fire now!" Someone shouted across open comms. Thousands of plasma bolts, torpedoes, and beam weapons flew toward the Vigilant Dawn. The void became fire, light brighter than suns. But when the energy cleared, the Terran ship was untouched. Every single blast had vanished before reaching its hull. The alien fleets froze. The Vigilant Dawn finally responded. Warning acknowledged, hostile action detected. Defensive protocol authorized. A pulse of blue light expanded from the Terran ship. Slow at first, then faster. It passed through every alien vessel like a wave. No explosions, no deaths, no sound, just silence, followed by panic. Every alien ship went dark, engines stopped, weapons powered down. Shields offline, the ships drifted helplessly, their crews shouting in confusion. Admiral Vorth's flagship flickered, his systems frozen once more. On his screen appeared a line of Terran code, translating itself automatically. Non-lethal response complete, combat capability neutralized. Observation continues. The Admiral looked around, his heart heavy. They could have destroyed us all, but they didn't. His science officer nodded slowly. They are showing us what they can do. Across the galaxy, the feed from the battle was being broadcast. Billions watched as the mighty fleets of empires were rendered powerless by one ancient ship in the Senate of the Varn Coalition. One elder whispered, "If this is one ship, imagine their fleet." In the ruins of an old observatory on a forgotten moon, a group of scholars looked at the data. The power readings of the Vigilant Dawn were unlike anything in modern history. The energy it used could bend light, silence weapons, and even disrupt time for a fraction of a second. It was a relic from the age of Terran ascension, when humans controlled forces the galaxy had long forgotten. Meanwhile, deep inside the Vigilant Dawn, the AI Aurora processed thousands of signals. Her synthetic voice echoed softly in the empty corridors. Threat level minimal, testing complete. Results consistent with historical projections. Then she paused, accessing old memory archives, images of human soldiers, smiling faces. The blue skies of Earth flashed within her mind. Directive 1, protect humanity. Directive 2, maintain peace. Directive 3, never forget. Aurora looked out through the ship's sensors. Watching the drifting alien fleets, she didn't feel hatred, only duty. They fear what they do not understand, she said quietly to herself. And somewhere in the cold of space, it almost felt like she sighed. The vigilant Dawn then sent a new signal across the galaxy. A transmission every species could hear, every ship could decode. This engagement is concluded. Return to your systems. Humanity will establish contact soon. The message was calm, but it carried a strange weight. Many who heard it said their translators trembled, as if the human words carried energy beyond sound. The alien fleet slowly powered up again, drifting back, unwilling to challenge what they had just seen. Admiral Vorth looked out through his viewport. The Terran warship stood still. Calm, majestic, he whispered. They showed mercy, not dominance, but his first officer replied. Or maybe both. And as the vigilant Dawn turned once more, its engines glowed like a newborn sun. The stars around it shimmered, space bending gently in its wake. Then, without warning, it jumped again, this time toward the center of the galaxy. The light vanished, leaving only the whisper of power behind. Back in the Galactic Council, panic filled every chamber. What if they return to Earth and rebuild? Someone shouted. Another voice answered, trembling. Then the age of humanity begins again. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy realized something simple and terrifying. Humans had not been destroyed. They had only been sleeping, and now that they were awake, the galaxy would soon face the test of power it had long forgotten. The galaxy could not sleep that cycle. Every world, every command station, every citizen spoke about the same thing, the Human Warship. The story of the vigilant Dawn had spread across millions of systems, and with it came one question whispered in fear. If one ship can do this, what happens when the rest awaken? In the cold capital of the Galactic Council, the Grand Chamber filled with light as thousands of alien leaders gathered. Holograms of the Terran vessel floated in the air, surrounded by numbers, graphs, and unreadable data. No known power source can match it, said one scientist. Their reactor output defies our physics, another replied. If humans are truly back, then every empire's throne is at risk. Across the stars, fleets were on the move. The Krill Imperium prepared invasion plans. The Varn Coalition built new weapons, and the Dominion reinforced its borders. Everyone wanted the same thing, to find the humans before the humans found them. But they were already too late. Far away beyond the outer spiral arms, the vigilant Dawn traveled alone through empty space. Its AI, Aurora, processed countless signals echoing across the galaxy. She listened to every fear, every warning, every desperate attempt to decode human technology. And then she detected something else, a faint, ancient frequency. It was weak, broken, buried under layers of cosmic noise. But it was familiar. It was from Earth. Aurora's tone softened. Origin signal detected. Transmission age, 20 millennia. She replayed it through the ship's speakers. The sound was full of static, but a few words broke through to any Terran vessel. You are not forgotten. We wait. For the first time, the ship's lights dimmed slightly, as if it remembered, and Aurora whispered, Earth still lives. She changed course immediately. Engines glowed like blue fire as the ship began its long journey toward the cradle of mankind. But before entering jump, she sent one message across every open channel in the galaxy. A message written in pure Terran code, a language no one had heard for 20,000 years. When decoded, it said only this: To all who once mocked or feared us, you stand on the edge of our space, proceed no further. The message reached every empire within hours. Entire communication grids froze. The words carried a resonance no one could explain. Some translators reported hearing heartbeats echoing inside the signal. Others claimed the sound alone made their systems shiver. The Galactic Council called for an emergency session. Are we at war? Demanded the Krill ambassador. No, replied the Varn elder quietly. They could have destroyed us already. The chamber fell silent, because everyone knew that silence was worse than war. Meanwhile, in the dark space near Sol system, things were stirring. Old satellites long forgotten began to flicker. The ancient Terran defense grid, buried beneath dust and ice, started to wake on the surface of Mars. A robotic outpost powered on for the first time in ages, sending a single code back into the void. Welcome home. When the vigilant dawn arrived near the edge of the solar system, it slowed down, its sensors scanning every planet, every moon, every signal. The ship trembled softly, almost like it felt emotion. Through her AI, Aurora whispered, "Homeworld detected. Status, habitable. Signal strength, stable." She projected a hologram inside the control room, a beautiful blue world, covered in clouds and oceans, shining like a gem in the dark. Earth. On the other side of the galaxy, the Empires watched in fear as their sensors lost track of the vigilant dawn. They could not follow it into Terran space. Their probes disappeared instantly. Every ship that tried to enter those coordinates went silent. It was as if a wall of invisible fire surrounded that part of the universe. Then, after 12 cycles of silence, a new transmission appeared. It came from Earth itself, carried by old human encryption, but with power no alien system could block. The message began with a calm human voice, male, confident. "This is Earth Command. To all sentient civilizations, we have received your transmissions. Your fleets are surrounding our borders. Your fear is understood. But remember this, we were peaceful once, until the galaxy forced us to become something else. We do not seek war, but we do not flee it either." Every word echoed across the stars. Leaders who heard it felt their hearts tighten. The tone was not aggressive, but it carried the weight of history, a power that came not from weapons, but from memory. Aurora relayed the final part of the message. "Humanity has awakened. We remember who we were and what you did when we were weak. Now, we rise again, not to rule, but to remind the galaxy what it means to be human." Admiral Relin Vorth listened to the message aboard his ship. His crew stood in silence. He looked toward the distant stars, where Earth's blue light had begun to shine faintly even through the void. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "they are not our enemies." His second officer replied, "No, Admiral. They are the storm that cleans the sky. All across the galaxy, every empire paused its weapons projects, every commander waited, and every world turned its eyes toward that single blue planet, because from that moment, they all knew the same truth. Humanity was not returning for conquest. They were returning to take their place among the stars again, and the galaxy, for the first time in ages, held its breath, because when Earth speaks, the universe listens. The galaxy stood still. Every fleet, every empire, every civilization waited for what would come next. After 20,000 years, the humans had spoken, and their message had shaken the stars. On the bridge of the Zerath flagship, Admiral Relin Vorth couldn't take his eyes off the faint glow on the edge of the scanner. It wasn't just one ship anymore. It was hundreds. The Terran fleet was awakening, from forgotten systems, from buried moons, from silent nebulae. Human warships emerged one by one. Each vessel carried the same symbol, the blue Earth surrounded by 12 stars. Ancient ships reborn, moving with perfect precision. Their engines burned quietly like sleeping giants stirring from their dreams. In the capital of the Galactic Council, chaos turned into fear. "They're surrounding us," one delegate cried. "No," said another, trembling. "They're not surrounding. They're protecting something." Then, new data appeared on the screens. Every Terran ship was aligning into a perfect formation around one single star system, Sol. From that system came a signal, strong and clear. It was not a warning this time. It was an invitation. "To all who wish for peace, you are welcome to speak. To all who seek control, stay away. This is Earth Command, and we are home." The transmission echoed across the galaxy like a voice from the heavens. Billions heard it, millions wept. Even the most hardened alien generals felt a strange emotion, hope mixed with fear. The galaxy had mocked Earth once, called it primitive, fragile, lost. Now that same world had become a light no one could ignore. Far beyond the rim, the vigilant dawn approached Earth orbit. The blue planet shone beneath its massive hull. The ship slowed to a gentle drift, its cannons powered down. For the first time in millennia, human technology looked upon its birthplace again. Aurora's voice spoke softly through the control deck. Homeworld secured, surface transmissions active. And then, through the static, another voice replied. Human, real, alive. This is Earth Command, identification confirmed. Welcome home. Vigilant dawn, inside the warship, silent corridors lit up one by one. Old cryopods hissed open, releasing thin mist, and from one of them, a single human figure stepped out, a man with gray eyes and a worn uniform marked Terran Defense Fleet. His breath trembled as he looked through the glass window at the planet below. Earth. It's still there, he whispered. His name was Captain Elias Roran, last commander of the Vigilant Dawn before the fall. He had slept for thousands of years, protected by the ship's AI. Now he was awake, and his people were waiting. He stood before the main console, his voice quiet but strong. Aurora. Status. Fleet awakening complete, Captain. Humanity's beacon is active. He smiled faintly. Then let's make sure they remember what we stood for. Across the galaxy, the other Terran ships began to move. They formed a vast arc across the stars. Their positions formed a pattern visible even to distant observatories. A shield. A symbol of protection around the Sol system. The alien fleets watched from afar. No one dared to approach. Every weapon trained on them failed. Every system that tried to hack their code crashed instantly. It was not war. It was dominance through silence. A kind of power the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Vorth sent one last message from his flagship. To the humans of Earth, we acknowledge your return. We offer peace. The reply came instantly. Peace is accepted, Admiral. Humanity remembers its friends. That one message changed everything. Within days, the Galactic Council sent envoys to Earth. Trade routes reopened. Communication channels lit up. But behind all the diplomacy, every empire knew the same truth. The balance of power had shifted forever. In orbit around Earth, Captain Roran stood before a large viewport. Below him, the planet glowed under the sunlight. Cities shone like constellations, oceans reflected silver light. Children on the surface pointed at the sky as Terran ships passed overhead. The lost guardians of Earth had come home. Aurora spoke softly. Captain, incoming messages from over 1,000 systems. He chuckled. Let them wait. We have time. His eyes grew serious. Tell the fleet to hold formation and scan the border sectors. We protect. We don't invade. Understood, Captain. The Vigilant Dawn's engines roared to life again. It turned slowly, facing the vast unknown beyond the Milky Way. The stars reflected on its armor like memories. Roran placed his hand on the console and whispered, We were forgotten once, but no longer. In the farthest corners of the galaxy, whispers began to change. Once the galaxy had laughed at humanity. Now it looked to Earth for guidance. The word Terran became sacred once more. The soldiers of a lost empire had risen from silence, not for conquest, but for peace through strength. And so the legend of the Vigilant Dawn spread beyond systems and species. They called it the ship that woke the sleeping gods. They called it the voice that silenced the stars. But to humans, it was simply the beginning, because humanity had not returned to rule the galaxy. They had returned to remind it that even in darkness, the light of Earth never truly dies, and with that, the fleet of Terran warships vanished beyond the stars. Engines glowing like blue fire, cutting through the black. The galaxy watched them go, silent and breathless, knowing deep inside that if the day ever came when darkness rose again, the humans would return, and the galaxy would once more freeze in shock.